man. Hopefully people checked out our Gulfstream Park coverage for Saturday. We did late pick 5, and now we're going to take a look at the pick 6 at Santa Anita. I miss Santa Anita. I haven't been there in quite some time. Well, I guess it was the Breeders' Cup.
Breeders' Cup.
Yeah.
23?
Yeah, it feels like a long time. For a place that we used to go all the time, Nick Tammaro here with me, boss man. When was the last time you were at Santa Anita?
Breeders' Cup 23. So, yeah, it was the first time in, I think, 4 or 5 years before that. And gosh, we went maybe 8-10 times between 15 and 18? I think we went 4 times in 2015 alone.
Yeah, it was a
lot. We used to go on opening day. I did never do that, but it's great. It's probably still my favorite. Just combining the racetrack feel with that background, it's incredible.
Yeah, at some point, I think there was a couple people that were shocked that I didn't live in California. That's how often we were there. We'll get started in this pick 6 with a $20,000 claimer going 6 furlongs. It looks as if the Too Cheeky Gal will find herself on the front end, moving from the turf. Boss man, how are we going to get this thing started?
Yeah, I think she'll likely be forwardly placed. I mean, I felt like the other horse that probably garnered some attention was the 5 Ufta, who'll be forwardly placed as well. She was up in the mix last time out before tiring. That was a fast-paced race, and I think she ran well, all things considered. Probably best in a stalking type of role, and I think she gets that opportunity with the way the draw shook out here. I was a little intrigued by the 7 Big Celebration as well, back to dirt for Luis Mendez. This is a barn that's actually had a really good meet, and one that I've had a few horses that I've liked that have run well. So I think this is a horse that can make up some late ground if that pace heats up a little bit. Have to at least mention the 1 Isabel Ludlow. I don't love the inside draw. I don't like the declining speed figures. Mentioning her more so because I think this is a horse that you probably want to oppose when a high percentage barn like this sees a horse moving the wrong direction. Usually you want to hit the exit.
I like Ufta as well. One of those horses who shows speed going 6.5, kind of faded a little bit. I think the cutback and the outside draw could hit that one right between the eyes. On to race 6, the second leg of this pick 6. We've got 6 furlongs sprinting on the grass. I got to be honest with you, boss. I get a little bit sad every time I see that there's a turf sprint at Santa Anita and it's not down the hill. It is my favorite. And when I had Trevor Denman on JK+1, I actually talked to him about calling that race, and it was a lot of fun to hear him describing calling it as the legend that he is out there. But how are we going to handle this 6 furlong?
Trevor, it's good. It's good to see. Good to see that you got that done. I can't wait to listen. And have you ever been in the booth at Santa Anita?
Yes, once. Yes, with Frank one time.
You see, they fully disappear when they're coming down the hill.
Yeah,
you're absolutely like using. Yeah, I can't imagine that. This is a tough race, and again, I'm not a huge fan of these straightaway turf sprints, to be perfectly honest. I feel like they really end up being boring races more often than not. They're dominated on the front end quite frequently. I was a little intrigued to see Doug O'Neill move Lajos to the turf. This is obviously a move he's wanted to make. He entered him for the turf last time out, and he got scratched off of it. Progeny of Cantharos historically have been very good on turf. The Dam was a 2-time synthetic winner. She was winless on turf, but ran well on it, all things considered. Second Family's not really loaded with turf pedigree. This is a horse with a lot of talent that really just hasn't put it together since a big beginning to his career. The horse to beat is Tiger Hunt on the outside. He was pace compromised last out in that Sorrento Sky race. They didn't go very quick, and he ended up coming up wanting late. Didn't really have much of an excuse, which is why I kind of have a hard time embracing him. I think the 5 We're in Trouble is very dangerous for Michael McCarthy coming back from a layoff. It's obviously been an incredible run for him, including that big cap day with 4 wins. This is a horse that ran really well second out down the hill and has that right kind of running style, I think, for this trip where he can be forwardly placed and still has a little finish to him. So I'll probably be mainly 4 and 5 in here, a little bit of the 3 and 8 as backups.
Yeah, Vlahos is a pet to me. I think if you look at all of these horses' races, Vlahos's Pat Day Mile is without a doubt the best race that any of these horses has run. He just, like you said, hadn't put it all together. And sometimes when you have a horse who's shown a bunch of talent like this that is now trying to do something new, that new thing might be the thing that kind of wakes him up. So I would definitely want to have that one. Race 7, $5,000 claimers, 6 furlongs. Almost an 11 horse field. It looks like the 7 is an early scratch. So you got 10. How are we going to do this one, boss man?
Boy, man, I love that they're finding a spot for these Northern California horses, and they do end up making for some interesting races. This is a great handicapping quandary, Jonathan, in that the one is clearly the best horse in the race. I mean, he has run races that are way faster than everybody in here, even getting beaten by 13 lengths. But how the heck can you get excited about a horse off a 20-month layoff that is switching barns, is going obviously to a much smaller time barn from that of Steve Miotti? Now, with all due respect to Jorge Maravilla, he is a guy whose name literally means marvelous, and has also won some races. It's just very, very hard to embrace this horse. The question is, who's the alternative? I like the 8 Hermelinda's Fancy a little bit. Felt like this horse got into the wrong spot around the turn last time. Probably needs to be a little bit more forwardly placed. I'm hoping that they're aggressive early. I thought the 8 Laura's Kiddo could be a little bit dangerous. I'm not really sure how much I think Emerald Form is going to hold up here, but ultimately you have to use the 1. So I will likely be probably heaviest on 1 and 8, a little bit of the 11 as a backup.
Yeah, I thought the race was impossible. I mean, it's one of those situations where, I kind of mentioned earlier, I would do as much as possible in the spreading of that race. Race 8, Santa Anita, grade 3, 1.25 miles, for the fillies and bears. Boss man, how are we going to get this grade 3 handled?
Yeah, I've always had a lot of respect for Mrs. Astor. I actually joked with Jonathan Thomas about this. He was one of the trainers whose number I copped off of you as time went by, trying to recruit for horses. But I said Mrs. Astor had been plaguing me because I made her a bad morning line a couple of years ago at Keeneland. And unsurprisingly, I got reminded of that after it happened. She comes in off a good effort. She's actually become a really nice and consistent horse. I thought her Frankel was very good. She ran them down late despite not really having much pace to run at. She is the horse to beat if the 8 doesn't show up in full force. The 8, Kathy and Marissa, was a good second behind She Feels Pretty. Unfortunately, She Feels Pretty is not back in training yet, but hopefully will be surfacing at some point in 2025. This horse ran very well. Frankie made a very sort of shocking middle move in that race, fearing that She Feels Pretty was going to get too far ahead of her. And it ended up that was the case, but I think he did what he could to try and win right then. She's a really tactical horse, very handy. She can be forwardly placed. She can come from off of it. So it feels like one of those two is going to win. I know it's boring, but I think if Kathy and Marissa for some reason stubs her toe, then Mrs. Astor will be in line to benefit. I guess the only conceivable alternative would be maybe somebody going wire to wire, but boy, I can't back Omaha Girl, even if she comes in off giant pace figures going a mile where she ended up tiring late.
Race 9, we got 2 left. The late double, maiden claimers, 50,000, 3-year-old Calbreds, in race 9. It looks like Charms Away. Looks like they could be tough in here. I always like a horse that is shown some ability, maiden special weight, specifically shows some ability with some speed involved, and then cutting back. I think those are the dangerous types. I don't really love the kind of late running maiden special weight droppers. I prefer the ones that do more of the running early. What are we going to do here in race 9?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, in making a living as an off-the-pace dirt horse in Southern California is not easy. That horse looks particularly dangerous. I like the ascending speed figures as well. Clearly really coming into his own. He comes out of a race where Roman Gratis wired the field. I thought there was another horse that faced Roman Gratis last out that was worth mentioning. It was the 8 3-wire, second-time starter for Andy Mathis, going in for the tag. This horse comes out of the race that Roman Gratis was disqualified in. And he was one of the horses that was impeded in upper stretch. His race was pretty much over by that point, but I do think there's enough meat on the bone there to give him another shot second time out. Obviously like the drop. This is a spot where he'll be a lot more successful. From an odds perspective, I'm likelier to gravitate to a horse like 3-wire than Charms Away, just because you're going to get a better price, but I think you need to use both for sure.
And to wrap this thing up, we're going to go to the last. We've got maiden special weights on the grass. Boss, for me, when the 10 and Tressa really grabbed my attention because she ran a winning race. She lost. She ran third in her debut, but a winning race for a trainer who is not good with first-time starters or not intentional with first-time starters, I think is probably the more appropriate way to say it. It's not like I think he's out here trying to win first out and he doesn't. So I don't want to say he's not good at it. But with first-time starters throughout his career, he's 9% John Sheriff's, and he had a horse like this show enough talent to run a winning race first time out. I've got no problem being alive to Tressa in this last leg.
I agree. I mean, I think the favorites really do dominate the attention here. I know it sounds bad given how wide open the race is, but you look individually at the races that the 6 Robin with a Y and the 10 Entressa ran on debut, and they both ran good enough to win. Obviously, from a speed figure perspective, Robin with a Y ran a lot faster, but it's also worth noting that Entressa was run down by Jungle Peace, who came right back to win. So there's every chance that that race actually should have a figure that's a little bit higher. I think if you're closing it out with those two, you're going to drive yourself nuts if you really try to find anybody else. And I think ultimately you're going to find out you should have just gone with one of them. Maybe the fly in the ointment is the One Storm Lady. This isn't really much of a move that we've seen from Carla Gaines over the years. She hasn't had a lot of imports, but this horse does get first Lasix and showed some life overseas on some heavy and soft courses. Maybe we'll like the firmer footing a little bit more coming over to Southern California.
Well, like we said, we got the pick 5 video from Gulfstream. We've got this pick 6 video from Santa Anita. We hope you hit one or both of those wagers. We appreciate you and all of your viewership or listenership. I think this is going to be on audio as well. Boss man, I appreciate you taking the time, and we want to thank you all for listening. Until next time, may you win all your photos, is what I believe Pete likes to say.